So yeah, we're on the waterfront. I hear this weird noise, and I'm like, yo, y'all hear that noise? They hear the noise, but they don't get the vibe or the feeling that I'm feeling. Like, what the heck? Is something like went off in my spirit. And we're smoking, and remember, it's pitch black outside. So we're on this waterfront, and just randomly, this young girl comes walking down the pier. This really pretty mid-aged woman comes walking down the pier, asking us to smoke with us, asking us to hang out. It was literally like random, something that you don't see often. Like, for one, why would a woman be out there by herself where we're at? I would not have even went out there by myself. So instantly, when she comes up to us, I'm like looking at my brother, and I'm like, yo, what the heck? But they're not getting the feeling that I'm getting. And she's asking us these questions, and I'm like, nah, no, no. Like, why are you out here? What the heck? Why are you out here by yourself? That's weird. So eventually we part ways with her. She walks away, and I'm like, yo, that was a damn mermaid, yo. I'm like, yo, I'm getting chills even thinking about it. I'm like, yo, that was a mermaid. And they cracking up. I'm laughing at myself too, because like, where did this just drop in my spirit at? I'm like, yo, that was a mermaid. And I don't know if she was trying to like draw us in or have us come into agreement with some stuff. And we laughing about it, but I'm so serious when I was saying these things. And I want to say, God knows, but I want to say that that was a time where my discernment was just like on point. But again, I wasn't putting a term on these things. Some people even call it that I was going crazy. And yeah, to the world standard, I may have been, but again, I know now that it was God, keeping my discernment on point, and at the point to almost literally at the point to where I was coming to the end of myself and not going by my own understanding or going by what my eyes are seeing or what my flesh just thinks. Starting to take into account what my spirit is telling me, or what my discernment is letting me know. So this is just one of the encounters. But the encounter that really like did it for me, coming to the end of myself, was, I was just like, life was just so heavy on me. Again, I had no direction. I wanted so much more for my children. I wanted so much more out of life. I just wanted, I wanted to be closer to God. I had heart's desires that were not fulfilled, and these heart's desires weren't things that I desired before. These were desires that God dropped in my heart and in my spirit. And again, I thought I had a plan. I thought I knew what I wanted to do. But they say if you want to make God laugh, you tell him your plans. And you can have a plan all you want, and it can be all good, and you could think you know which way you're going, but God will take you a crazy detour. You know what I mean? And even what you think you want to do, he will maybe bring it to something in that realm, but that may not even be where he wants you to go. So nowadays I'm just walking it out daily and trying to do the next best thing, and whatever comes along with that, if I feel like God is telling me to go, then I'm going. So yeah, basically I'm at the point now to where I'm like days away of literally coming to the end of myself. The only way that I see my way out of the life that I was in, the life that I was stuck in, the cycles, the toxicity, the bad habits, all of that. The only way I see myself out of these things was dying in my sin. Like, literally dying in my sin. I see no way out. Like, just like everything was foggy. Like a dark cloud was literally over my life. I know some people say that lightly or throw that dark cloud term around, but it was literally like a dark cloud, and I only know that by this next encounter that I had. and when God literally showed up. And you know, this next encounter, I know it was an encounter from God, because all of the experiences that I've had before all came together and gave me an understanding of what I was seeing, what I was feeling, my vision, just everything. So, you know, this is why God will take all of the bad and use it for good. You know, all of that bad brought me to an understanding of how God works. And I'm not saying that I know every way that God works, but, you know, just in my life, it just brought me to an understanding of, you know, God has been there for me the whole time. He's been hearing and watching and guiding my steps. You know, your trials and your tribulations are all necessary, you know, to make you into the person who you are meant to be, and to let you know how and what we're fighting against, you know, and how to fight against these things that we are fighting against. With my mother, I fell into like fake fentanyl pills, like really bad. And while I was with my mother, I OD'd 3 times. And I know now, I even kind of knew at that moment, but that didn't put the fear in me that God wanted me to have, or the understanding, like how much God was with me. So 3 times I was dead on my face, and at the last second, each time, God sent someone through my mother's door, just random. And 1 or 2 of the times, it was my mother just randomly waking up at the last second. Like, if these people didn't come in, or if my mother didn't wake up at the last split second to come and wake me up, every single time I would have been dead. So this is where I understand now that is where a point in my life where I started coming to the end of myself. And the reason I say that is because nothing that I was doing was working. Nothing that I wanted to do was coming together in a way that I desired. And you know, I really didn't even have any direction of what I needed to do and what God wanted me to do, or any of that. And you know, this was after I came home from prison. Thought I had a plan coming home from prison, and thought that, you know, everything was just gonna work out because I came home from prison fresh-minded and all of that. But again, I know now that the point of prison was for me to you know, have some silence, to get to understand God's voice, to know what his presence feels like, and also to save me from myself, you know, to let my mind, my body, and my soul heal. Because again, if I would have not went to prison and was able to continue to do things that I was doing out on the streets, my body wouldn't have, my mind, or my soul would not have had the time or the place to be able to heal from the things that I was doing. So, you know, again, I know now that, you know, it was all just part of God's plan, and literally everything that has happened and everything that God has done was all necessary and all for a reason.
So, when it comes to the music, something both you and I absolutely love, and it's been our lives for a very long time. I first, you know, encountered you on Verse and Vision Live, where, well, it wasn't there. It was another platform, but still. And I was hosting a talent styled show, and you were there, and we still joke about I don't remember you at that point, but it's fine. But when we did get to know each other, and you were like, oh, I'm a rapper, and I was like, yay, great, you know, because everybody is. And that's the joke that, you know, we have behind the scenes. But you actually have, you know, music online at that time. And I remember only knowing the version of you now. So when you gave me the link and I listened to it, I was floored, because I said to myself, oh, his testimony, even though I knew very little of it, I said, oh, that's a real testimony, because he is definitely not that guy. And I make jokes about it all the time, but that was not your best work. And that's how I know God has done a thing in you, because it was almost like, and please don't take offense to this, it was like somebody who was just on the corner with the homies, don't sound like nothing, but everybody hype each other up. You didn't have nothing going on for yourself. You was just rapping because you could out of boredom. To what you're doing now musically is like light years away, because I feel like in your sobriety, God gave you your voice and the ministry and the things he wanted you to say. You don't sound like the same person. You don't look like the same person. But there's so much power in the words you say, your cadence, how you put things together. When I say, for people, if they find this music, because I ain't gonna tell you where it is, but if you happen to stumble upon it, and you didn't know it was the same person, you would never believe it was the same person, because it feeds to the flesh directly versus your music feeding to the spirit now. So please tell me what made you decide to wake up and want to be a rapper, sir. That's what you were doing then, but you're living it now.
Yeah. Well, I've always been passionate about music. You know, I was brought up in music. You know, my dad, he raised us around good music. You know, my dad is a singer. My brother is a singer. I sing a little something, but writing music is something that I'm passionate about. And one reason why I'm passionate about it is because it lets me be able to express myself with whatever way I need to express myself. And I say whatever way because while I was going through this federal house arrest situation and my mind was just everywhere, one way that I was able to release was just by writing music. And from where I'm at now and looking back on it back then, even when I go listen to my older music on SoundCloud, if you want to go listen, it's JV Van Dyke 19 on SoundCloud, and don't come back and tell me nothing. But if you want to go listen to it, go check it out. It's on SoundCloud. But when I go listen to my old music and what I'm speak about today and what I know today, it's just so eye-opening, and it lets me know, where my mental state was back then, because the things that I was speaking on literally had no depth to it. I wasn't speaking life through my music. It was all about drugs, sex, money, robbing, stealing, killing. And I know some people, speak about these things in their music even today, and it might be, the things that they came up around or the things that they may feel passionate about, putting out there. That's just something that's not what I'm about nowadays, you know what I mean? But that don't mean that I don't still have an ear for music. I love music. I listen to a lot of types of music. There's a certain type of music that you won't hear on my radio, but we're not gonna get into that, you know what I mean? But if you're passionate about something, get to it, stay at it, be consistent with it, but I've been into music for over I'm 38 now. I've been into music for over 23 years. I've been into music. I've been writing music, rapping, singing, but none of the time that I was doing music before, I wasn't going about it in the correct way at all. You know what I mean? So, while I was on house arrest, that was just one of my ways to express myself, to release the things that was going on in my mind, to relieve some stress, and to kind of try to connect with the outside world. And I was doing that in a way on SoundCloud, you know what I mean? I definitely was. House arrest definitely played its role. And, once I got off house arrest and finally completed everything that needed to be done, I thought it was going to be up from there with life. I felt like I done completed something. But all house arrest did, and I'm not saying it to belittle it, but what it did was it saved me from myself for a few years. The same thing that prison did for me was it just basically took away from time from me being able to be on the streets doing the wrong thing and putting this wear and tear on my body. because if it didn't have that role in my life, I would have been dead and gone a long time ago, because I would have just been stacking negative on top of negative substances in my body, things on my brain, just all of that type of stuff. And my mind, my body, and my soul just never would have had the time to heal. My soul would have never had the time to grow. My spirit would have never had the time to get close to God and have that silence, even though I was still yearning for the noise and to be outside and to be around people and to just be living life freely with no cares in the world. You know what I mean? And, at the time, I did not see it in this way. I looked at it like life was unfair, but yeah, we here now, and thank the Lord that I have eyes to see, ears to hear, and a mind to understand what's going on, what went on, and God is, He took the wheel, and we here. So yeah, after I got off house arrest, I thought I had everything figured out. So yeah, got off house arrest, and I started working doing property preservation, which was basically taking care of foreclosed properties. And like I said, I thought I had everything in order. I had bought 2 trucks. Me and my right hand man, we were doing the work and we were making money, but I wasn't saving none of it. Every day we would make some money, and I would go to the store, buy some liquor, get some weed, and get some pills. Right back into the same mess that God then slowed me down from. Every day I was just doing that, stacking it on top of stacking it, just all of the negative stuff, but still waking up every day to go to work, make some money. And even at that point, I still wasn't doing everything correctly because I had no driver's license. You know what I mean? I didn't have no driver's license for. I lost my driver's license at like 22, and didn't get them back until recently, while I was 37. Thank the Lord. You know what I mean? But through all of that time, I was driving with no license, buying cars, driving all over the United States, no license. You know what I mean? And yeah, man, it's definitely been a process. And I thought I was doing everything right, but lo and behold, everything started falling apart when I got worse back into taking the pills. I was taking Xanax and Oxy 80s. I was taking about 8 to 10 Oxy 80s a day, and Xanax on top of that, and drinking liquor. Now, if you know oxys and the milligrams and all that type of stuff, yeah, I was doing it, way overdoing it, and it was showing. It was showing in my mental health. It was showing spiritually. It was showing in the way that I was living, and just the things that I was doing. You know what I mean? I wasn't tending to the things that I needed to tend to, whether that be my children, my children's mother, my family, my friends, none of that. I wasn't stewarding none of that correctly, not at all. You know what I mean? My relationships with my family, my siblings, nothing. You know what I mean? And like I said, it showed because things around me started to deteriorate. So one night I was outside, working on my truck, changing the tire for my truck, and the cops pulled up on me because somebody said that I was making too much noise. And I don't know what the heck got into me. I had on this big snowsuit, heavy duty snowsuit. It's probably like 1.5 feet of snow outside. I got a full body snowsuit on. The cops pull up on me. I'm not escaping no cops. You know what I mean? I think back on it now. But the cops pulled up on me. I knew I had like a warrant for missing court. Cops pulled up on me, and I tried to run from them in the snow. Cop jumped right on my back, and the cop broke his knee. And they locked me up. For like assault on an officer, even though he hurt himself. But they locked me up for that charge. I was only locked up for a few weeks. The cops ended up didn't go forward with the case, didn't press any charges or anything like that. So I got locked up. I came home, and when I came home, I had moved to Bound Brook, New Jersey, and my addiction just continued and got worse and worse. I was taking e-pills, taking opiates, going crazy. And opiates now, and I'm not going too crazy in it, but opiates, I was doing all type of opiates, you know what I'm saying? And it literally like started to have like a crazy effect on me. I don't know if they started putting different things in into the ecstasy pills or making it out of different stuff, but yeah, it started to literally drive me crazy. So one day I was in Bound Brook and I couldn't sleep, and I ended up walking all the way to my mother's house in the middle of the night, and my dog must even knew I was going crazy, because she's like, normally I walk my dog on a leash, but I'm walking 4 o'clock in the morning down this main busy road, and I don't know, I was just feeling weird as heck, and my dog must have felt my emotions, because every car that drove by, I dove in the grass and felt like I was hiding from, I don't know, whatever I was hiding from. But anyway, I get to my mother's house, and I ended up calling the cops on myself. My mom was in her house sleeping by herself. I got to my mom's house. I walked in. I had the key. I walked in, and I ended up calling the cops on myself. Don't ask me why. I just did. I called the cops on myself. When the cops came, they found a bottle of Xanax, over 100 bottles of Xanax. I was selling drugs at the time. They found over 3 bricks of drugs on me, and they took me to the hospital and didn't charge me with anything, which was crazy, because the amount of stuff that I had on me, that alone came with crazy crazy time. But they took me to the hospital, took me to a crazy hospital. Part of my language, I'm not calling nobody crazy, but they took me to the hospital. Like when you see it on the TV where a crazy person tries to escape from a hospital, that was literally me. So they put me in the hospital, they just knew that my mental wasn't right. They strapped me to one of the beds, strapped both of my arms on the beds, and then they put a doctor, or whatever you call them, somebody to sit right there to watch me at all, 24/7. And right there, there's a mirror that's sitting up from my bed that I was strapped to. And that whole time I'm looking in the mirror. My eyes didn't close. I probably didn't even blink. But the whole time I'm watching that mirror to see if the person that's watching me is gonna go to sleep. They went to sleep, and I don't know how I was able to slip out of those things. They took all my clothes from me and put me in a blue gown to where my butt was hanging out the back of the gown. I'm not even lying. So where my butt was hanging out the back of the gown. I escaped out of the chains that they had me chained to the bed, and I ran out of the hospital. I don't know how I got to the entrance of the hospital. It was like through the ambulance exit. I ran out of there with no shoes on, nothing under my gown, nothing. I ran up out of there. And as soon as I ran up out of there, a security guard tackled me to the ground and carried me back to the bed. They strapped me back, strapped my legs up, and then they shot me up with some stuff that had like adverse effects on my mind, my body, and my soul. I don't know. Oh man, I'm just so grateful that God has gotten me through. But yeah, the stuff that they shot me up, it did something to me. It put me to sleep for 2 days, and it changed me for a while. You know what I mean? I guess it played its part because, You know, I don't know what would have happened if they didn't do that. I probably would have been up in there fighting and going crazy a lot more. But anyway, yeah, after they released me from the hospital, after a while, like I said, I didn't get charged with anything. I again fell back into my addiction, worse and worse. I was trying to sell drugs and ended up doing the drugs that I was selling. You know, they say you dig a pit for somebody, eventually you'll fall up in that pit. And me digging the pit was me selling drugs to somebody. And eventually I fell into that pit by doing those same drugs that I was selling to people. You know what I mean? So yeah, got deep into my addiction. I had a connect to where I was buying my oxys from, and my addiction had got so bad. Now this is where things start turning around for me. Like, my addiction had got so bad. You know, so through all of this, what I look back at now is through my addiction, I was numbing myself from just life. You know, I wanted so much more in life. I expected so much more out of myself, but I didn't know a way out. You know, I didn't know a way out. I didn't know how to do better. None of that. And so just unconsciously, it was me numbing myself and escaping from reality. So you know, being into my addiction, I had a plug and ended up one day not having no money to maintain my addiction. So me and a friend, I'm not saying no names, me and a friend ended up, what they said that we robbed or kidnapped, threw somebody in the trunk, made him go to the bank, withdraw all his money. This was the story they told, held him at gunpoint and all this crazy stuff. And it was just crazy. Another crazy time in my life, but this was literally like the turnaround. That don't mean that everything went so smoothly after this, but this was the turnaround, you know, in my life. Yeah, this guy said that we did all of these things to him, and I had used somebody's car that I had knew for this. So they ran the plates from the hotel camera and traced everything back to us. So, you know, I was home and I'm looking out my window like, what the heck? Why are they coming? Why is all these cops outside my house? And they towed the car. Just didn't, with nothing, just came and towed the car, towed the person's car from my house, whose car it was. I'm like, what the heck? Why is they towing the car? But I see a whole bunch of cops out there. I'm like, what the? I get a call from my friend, was like, yo, and they trying to charge us with first degree, this and that, a whole bunch of first degree charges. My heart dropped in my chest. I'm like, oh man, yo. I get sick to my stomach, like, damn, man. I don't know what I'm gonna do now. There's literally nothing that I can do. So the day after they towed the car, the next day, the U.S. Marshals came and knocked on my door, and I seen them, and I went and hid down in a hole in my basement, and they didn't find me. So come to find out, they were tracking my Facebook, tracking my phone, tracking any way that I could have been tracked. They were tracking me. And like 2 days later, it was probably like 6 o'clock in the morning. It was February 18th. February 18th or something like that. And 6 o'clock in the morning, the U.S. Marshals came and kicked in my door, and I'm laying in bed, and the cop comes in, man. Oh, I have a word that I want to use to describe this cop because of the way he was acting and treating me. But, you know, it is what it is. But he came into the house. They had these big, really big rifles. Some people know it as the SCAR machine gun that you see in Call of Duty. But he came and stood over me on my bed, put my hands behind my back, his foot on my back, and put the gun to the back of my head and was pressing down real hard. Oh man, worst pain that I could think of right now. pushing the gun down to the back of my head, and the handcuffs that they had like teeth inside of them, like spikes, not like sharp spikes, but it was like, you know, like teeth, to where you can't like wiggle them off, and they were sharp, like to where if a cop wanted to be a butthead, squeeze them joints real tight, and them joints was hurting. So the cop did that, squeezed the cuffs real tight. He squeezed them so tight to where I couldn't even walk straight. I couldn't even keep my eyes open, and I had to walk downstairs. So they grabbed me, pulled my arms up, like up to my shoulder, behind my back, pulled my arms up. I literally had to walk on my tippy toes. That's how much pain I was in when they squeezed the cuffs and had the gun. And it was freezing cold outside. It had to be maybe 25 degrees, snow on the ground and everything. The cops come in there and yeah, do that. Take me to prison. Charged with first-degree armed robbery, first-degree handgun possession, first-degree kidnapping, certain persons not to hold a gun. What else? Violation of probation. Whole bunch of crazy stuff, man. Whole bunch of crazy stuff. And I'm not even gonna mention, you know, I did have a code D and all of that, you know what I mean? Shout out to my code D, you know what I mean? We walked that joint out. God is good, you know what I mean? And my code D, you know, definitely played his part, you know what I mean? Did his thing, you know, the right way, you know what I mean? We walked it out together, you know, everything worked out, you know, better than I expect, and it all played its part. It really did, you know what I mean? And shout out to everything that my code D is doing, you know, nowadays in life, you know what I mean? God is good, bro. So yeah, everything worked out in there. So while we were in prison, you know, first going to court, they was talking about that we were facing life for the kidnapping charge alone. You know what I mean? So that alone, like, just brought this overwhelming like fear, and I don't know, like my hair started turning brown. You know what I mean? My hair started growing out brown from the stress, and you know, I just didn't know what I was gonna be doing. You know what I mean? I thought that the federal case was a time where I was about to lose everything, but this time right here, you know what I mean, I was older. I had a lot more to lose, even though I wasn't stewarding none of it correctly. I had a lot more to lose, and I had no control of nothing at the time. I had no money saved, no nothing. Spending a whole bunch of money and not doing nothing right with it. Not even paying my bills that I was supposed to be paying on time. And while we were in court, while we were in prison, you know, like I said, we were facing life, and then they had came down and offered us 8 years, or offered me 8 years, and they said that if I was to take that would free my code D, and I just take the 8 years. You know what I mean? So I went to court to take the 8 years. I had a public defender at the time, and you know, they're not gonna tell you nothing. They're telling me that they got all of this crazy evidence, you know what I mean? But that's neither here nor there. Their evidence, you know what I mean? God knew what went on, you know what I mean? So what they said that they had doesn't matter, you know what I mean? God has the final say. But anyway, I was ready to go take the 8 years. I signed some paper with my public defender, and we go upstairs we go into the courtroom. I didn't think that anybody was going to be there. I went to the courtroom, and my family is at court waiting on me to come into the courtroom, and they all in there telling me, Jawar, don't take no time. Don't take it. So we go into the courtroom, into the judge to finalize the 8 years. But at that last minute, I told the public defender, I'm not going to take this time. Not going to take this time. So some time passed, and you know, me and my co-defendant started to get in touch while we were in there. You know what I mean? Started writing letters to each other. We both joined this program to where we were able to contact each other, and you know, just keep each other up to date with everything. You know what I mean? And yeah, everything worked out. You know, so while I was in prison, you know, God was still dealing with me, It was through small signs and wonders. I know y'all hear that a lot, signs and wonders, but God really does work through signs and wonders. And there was just a few signs and wonders that God had for me. And this time right here, and I know y'all hear it a lot, that people want to change their life when they go to prison. But this is literally how it happened for me. Through everything that I've explained to y'all, you know what I mean? I've always knew God. I've always knew Jesus, or claimed to know Jesus, but not knowing the power in the name of Jesus. I'm pretty sure there's a scripture on that. I forget what the scripture is, and don't quote me on any of it. But it says something about not knowing the power thereof or therein or something like that. And you know, through fighting this case, and I was in a pod with murderers, with kidnappers, with rapists. You know what I mean? I was in a lockdown pod. I had the yellow band on in Middlesex County. You know, so all of the correctional officers, all of the people that was in jail, they looking at me like, oh yeah, this dude, some crazy killer, kidnapper dude. You know what I mean? I had a yellow band on in Middlesex County. And even me having a yellow band on and being in a lockdown pod, I still confessed my faith. And one of the ways that I would do that is, you know, I would do it out in front. You know what I mean? I'm not debating with anybody. You know, there's a lot of Muslims in jail too. And sometimes they would try to debate with me, you know, why this and why that. And I would simply say, I'm not debating my faith. And I would go to church. You know what I mean? And you would hear a lot like, look at this dude going to church in prison, got this crazy case. But I still continue to go to church. And one of the times I went to church, it was literally like on the cusps of my case taking a turn for the better. So, you know, I told you that they offered 8 years. I was going to take the 8 years. And then, you know, after a few months going back and forth to court and going to church at the same time and just getting closer to God, but being serious about it. You know what I mean? You know, God knew my heart. Yes, I knew I was in a crazy situation, but even up through the good and the bad, you know what I mean? I've always loved God. But, you know, this was just one of those times where God put me in silence, put me in solitude to really get to lock in and know what's up with him. You know what I mean? Or get to know what's up with him. And I went to church one day, and, you know, God just knew. He just knew that I needed him at that moment. Like, if I didn't have God at that moment while I was in prison, the stress alone, it might have caused me to have like some type of heart attack or something like that. You know what I mean? Just what I was feeling in my body, you know. And God must have knew that, or not must have. God did know that. So I went to church one time, and there was pastors that come in from the outside. I forget the pastor's names. It was 2 of them. And you know, it was different guys from different pods coming to the church. And we went into the church, and something just came over me, and I started singing No Weapon by Fred Hammond. Started singing Fred Hammond, No Weapon. And then just out of nowhere, like, tears started flowing from my eyes, and I got this like overwhelming like feeling like of like comfort. It's like a chill over my body that didn't go away like instantly. It was like a chill. It was like love. It's like warmth. It's almost like maybe like an angel was right there. But I know now it was the Holy Spirit, and the confirmation that I got, because I couldn't stop the tears from falling, and it was just like I seen a way out kind of thing. And the pastor, he actually put a term on it. He must have felt the Spirit in there or something, but he came and told me that was the Holy Spirit. And it's just crazy how God works, because I had a court date coming up, and I go to court that day, and my co-D, man, I didn't know what was going on with my court case. Remember last time it went from life, came to 8 years, and then we was just fighting the case in between there. There was numbers thrown here and there, but no court dates. Next court date that we go to, we get on the bus to go to court. This was right before COVID had hit, so things was getting crazy. Courts were closing down, everything, and we had literally the court case. Our court case was literally right before COVID, like the last court case before COVID closed down everything. We got sentenced and everything, but we get on the bus to go to court, and I didn't know anything what was going on. At this point, we had good lawyers on our team. Shout out to Jonathan Michael Petty, and I forget what the other lawyer's name was. But we get on the bus to go to court, and my co-D tells me that he says that they threw a number out there. He was talking about 18. He didn't say 18 what? I'm thinking 18 years. So instantly, like, I'm like, yo, nah, man, you're not serious, bro. And he's like, yes, they said 18 years. And then he was joking and said 18 months. So we went to court, and we signed our papers and copped out to 18 months. And just that alone, lifted a whole bunch of stress off my head. Because it's a lot of the not knowing when you're going back and forth to court, not knowing what's going on, not being in control of anything. That alone is probably 90% of the stress. And then the rest is like, just missing your family, your friends, and things like that. So, yeah, we finished our time, came home, thought I had everything figured out, thought I had a plan, thought I was going to come home and do things my way, but it just did not work out that way. You know what I mean? So, yeah, came home. I started to do things right, or what I thought was doing things right. Came home with no probation, no nothing. So, I was basically free to do as I will. And I did come home, got into work, fell back into selling drugs, selling harder drugs than what I was selling before, and fell in that pit. And it's just crazy, the things that I ended up doing while I was in this pit. I came home, tried to fix my relationship, and that was a whole bunch of up and down. I ended up homeless, and that was all my fault. Anything that I've done, I can't blame anything on nobody. I take full responsibility for anything wrong or any wrong that I have done to anybody. But I ended up homeless, and back and forth from being homeless and going back to the relationship that I was in. You know what I mean?